So we are recording. Dr. Revis, if you would, you start us off with bringing greetings.
Well, good evening, and hold on one second. Good evening, and welcome to week 3. Can you believe it that we are starting week 3? And you guys have done a lot of great work that we saw come in this past Sunday evening. And so just hang in there, guys. You will get the rhythm of things. Some of you've already done that, I can tell, and you're going to be fine. So welcome back to week 3.
Okay. And my sentiments exactly. We have a lot to cover this evening. We're going to try our best to do it within the hour. We ask you again to, for the most part, try to hold any questions until the end, because we possibly are going to answer them, during the day. And it just makes it so much easier, if you wait until the end, and we can just devote our time to that. So write them down and just as much as possible hold them until the end. I've pulled up week 3, and I'll always do this. This basically shows you what you're responsible for by the end of this week. Again, these are topics, and we're still working with the professional learning community. These are resources that this is independent. These are your textbooks. These are other sources, but you're required to read and research these areas on your own. However, when you are reading chapters 2, 9, and 10 in Aldridge, when you're doing your research work, or when you're doing your Zoom teams, when you come together as a Zoom team, these are opportunities to let Dr. Revis and me know that you are doing your reading and that you are citing the research and what these experts are saying. You learn to talk the talk in your Zoom teams. And then over here, remember we said that if it's in red, that means that it's something that's due and it's dealing with the APSL. Well, guess what? Under assignments this week, everything's red. So that means that all of this is due. So just remember that, and we'll remind you again before the class is over with, the APSL Task 1 that you turned into us for review this past Sunday is due for a final grade this coming Sunday. We're going to talk about this right here. Your APSL Task 1 peer reviews, 2 of them are due by this Sunday, but you can't wait until Sunday, and we'll talk about that in a few minutes. And then APSL Task 2 that was introduced last week that we're going to talk about again tonight, the draft of that will be due to Blackboard by Sunday. Now remember, I said by Sunday. I would not wait until Sunday if I didn't have to. I would, because I think you've learned that you get pretty quick feedback from both Dr. Revis and me. I personally go in there and look several times during the day. And if there's work in there, I'm going to go ahead and take care of it. So you know that you don't have to wait a whole long time to get feedback from either of us. It will help you out and you can move on. So, I would encourage you not to wait until Sunday night. If you've got it done, go ahead and get it done. And we'll give you that's the cue that you can move forward and you can go on to the next stop instead of standing still and just waiting. I want to pull, let me come back over here and find that error. There it is. I'm going to minimize, I'm going to minimize this. I may come back to that. I want to pull up where is it? Week 3. Okay, this is basically what we're going to be doing. We're going to talk about, in just a minute, we're going to talk about task 1 of the APSL, the good, the bad, and the ugly. We're going to do a quick review of task 2 again. We're going to talk about the peer review process and some things that we feel are very pertinent. We're going to try to talk about the upcoming Zoom team assignments for APSL Task 1 and 2 and what that needs to look like, because that's coming up soon. And then we're going to briefly introduce you to task 3. That's a lot, but we have to. And there's going to be some of you that's going to be ready actually before this week's over with. You won't realize it, but you're going to be ready to start on task 3. So after tonight and then on Thursday night, we're going to do a more intensive introduction to task 3. But we didn't want you to go into Thursday night not at least not having some idea of what Dr. Hamilton's actually going to handle task 3, what she's going to be talking about on Thursday night. Then we're going to come back for some question and answers. This can be found under week 3 in Blackboard. And these always are just week 3 responsibilities. But if you'll notice at the bottom, I always give you something to look forward to. And notice the dates. It's not, don't get scared on me. I'm just projecting things that are due ahead so that you can go ahead and get in your mind, that this stuff is coming up and I can't wait until the last minute. Dr. Revis, if you would, I'm going to minimize this. And if you would just go ahead and you can take charge of the screen, share the screen, and you can bring your document up. That we're going to talk about.
I think you're going to have to stop sharing.
Stop sharing. Yes, I will. Yes, I will. I'm sorry. There you go.
So what I wanted to do was share with you my thoughts on some common errors that I saw in your submissions. Now, let me just say this, guys. I will say this, and I've said it to Dr. Stedman. It takes me longer to give feedback than it does Dr. Stedman. He's been doing this for a long time, and it just takes me longer. So if you get yours in, I grade them or give you feedback in the order that you submit them. So if you don't submit it until 8 o'clock on Sunday, I probably won't get to it until Monday morning. But I like him, try to go in a lot and try to keep up with it. So here's some common errors that I saw. Don't forget to take off your highlighting and red text from your template. There were like 2 or 3 things at the bottom of the title page that several of you forgot to take off. And in the research section, some APA reminders. Now, I would like to consider myself an APA expert, but I am far, far, far from being an APA expert. So, it's kind of your job to delve into it. And please don't send me an email and ask me how to cite something. I don't know that off the top of my head.
Dr. Revis, you were too kind. It's not kind of their job. It is their job. That was their job. Word. Too kind, Dr. Revis.
All right. So, because I have to look it up just like you do. I don't know a lot of this stuff off the top of my head. So you'll learn it if you look it up. Now, if it's something unusual, I don't mind digging there with you. But you use your resources from your library that Dr. Bishop showed you last week and your APA manual. Now, here are some of the most common errors that I saw. When you use direct quotes, you must have the author, date, and page number. And of course, if it's an online research, you would use a paragraph number if it doesn't have page numbers. 3 or more authors, remember, you would use the et al. And this is the appropriate way to do a parenthetical citation. And this would come at the end of your sentence. Before et al. Period on the all, not on the et, and a date. And the narrative citation is how you would start a sentence. Before et al. 2019 proposed ... You would never in a narrative citation or a parenthetical citation state the author's first name. It's always using last names. Two same last names, you would use their initials. Okay? Any work cited in the narrative must have a corresponding entry in your reference section and vice versa. And your reference entries must be double spaced. Excuse me. I saw a lot of single spaced in reference entries, and they must have a hanging indent. On your appendices, all of your entries must be referenced in your narrative. You don't just stick appendices in your appendix. You don't stick appendices, entries into your appendices without having referenced that they're there in your narrative. And you just simply do that by saying, see Appendix A, see Appendix B, etc. And correspondingly, those have to match. The letters on them need to match as you go through. So those are some of the most common errors. Guys, you did a really good job as far as your school profiles were pretty thorough. If they weren't, I sent back and asked you to add some more. Your PLC research, for the most part, was very well written. Some of you did an outstanding job on that PLC research. I had a couple of you say, it's been a while since I've done this, but you hit the nail on the head. You did a very good job. Your PLC selection section was strong, as well as your description of your PLC meeting. So you did a great job on this. I was very pleased. I was tough on them this submission. I want you to know that I have high expectations, but unless you scored 100 on that draft, then you do your revisions and you resubmit them back in the same thread. We tell you when it's ready to go to final evaluation. Okay?
Okay.
Dr. Stedman?
Yeah, Dr. Thank you for that. And I saw a lot of the same things. First of all, I was highly, highly pleased with the work. And one of the groups, I had most of them by Saturday afternoon. I had most of one class's sections work by Saturday afternoon. Very, very pleased with it, with the work. I will tell you, and we'll talk about peer reviews in just a few minutes. Peer reviews are highly important, very important. However, it's important. You can choose to use peer review if you want to. That's your decision. But you cannot choose not to use whatever Dr. Revis and I tell you. If we tell you that something needs to be fixed, that's the gospel, and you've got to fix it. If you think that either of us have missed the mark on something, it's okay to question us about that if you think we've missed it, because we look at so much. Lord knows my eyes feel like they're crossing sometime. And and then again, my wife may call me in the middle of something. I'll go see what she wants, and then I'll come back, and then I have to start all over again sometime. Dr. Revis, Ken doesn't do you that way, does he? But
my grandchildren do me that way more than anything.
Well, my grandchildren would too, but they're not around. They're not close enough to have to do that. But so we may miss something, and I will tell you, we, as thorough as we try to be, we're not going to always catch everything. But guess what? I'm finding already in the peer reviews that some of you are catching something that I didn't see. Kudos to you. That's what we want. Sometimes you're even tougher than we are in what you say, and that's okay. That's okay. We want you to be. But remember,
and let me just
go ahead.
If I could just interrupt, let me just underscore something you just said. When we give you feedback, don't rush through that feedback and throw me something back. I want you to address everything that I ask you to address. It's very frustrating to me to get a revision and you've not addressed everything. We don't have time. You don't have time, and I don't have time to keep doing that revising. Don't resubmit it until you've addressed everything that I've asked you to address.
Thank you, Dr. Revis. And remember, when you send it in for peer and instructor review, remember we said that it's not just a rough draft. You can call it that, but it needs to be as much the real thing as possible the first time. I will tell you, do not deviate from the template that has been provided for you in Blackboard. Do not deviate from the template. Do not create your own design. Follow it and just fill in the blanks. That's all you've got to do with the work. We had a few that wanted to be, not many, but wanted to be creative. You can't do that. It will not be accepted. And so again, use what we have provided. And that, Dr. Revis, that's all I'm going to say about task one. If you need to go ahead and get it done, though, you don't need to belabor. You don't need to belabor. Let's skip around, Dr. Revis. Let's go ahead and talk about the peer review process. I've gotten several peer reviews already.
I have too.
Gotten several peer reviews, and I will tell you, I have said this, they get better and better and better. Some of the highest quality feedback that I can remember in my 9 years in doing this program. It is, I mean,
I agree, Dr. Stedman. I had some,
high
and
quality.
guys, high quality, and I had some. When I tell you your in-text citations, some are incorrect, I'm not going to go back and tell you which ones. But the peer reviews I've looked at that have come in, they have gone back and told them exactly, specifically where to go to make those corrections. I have been blown away. And guys, you need to look at these kind of peer review feedback. I mean, it's good quality, specific, thorough information.
I would take it, and it would be a roadmap for me. In fact, my comments back to many of them have been that your feedback has been of the quality that whoever you have done the work on, there's no reason, if they'll do what you told them to do based on what I've already told them, there's no reason not to have accomplished work on your final submission. Absolutely no reason for those that have turned it in. So now let's talk about turning it in, Dr. Revis. Dr. Revis, you talked about this last week, and we know that work is due no later than Sunday night, but you can't do that with peer reviews. Dr. Revis, tell them when they should be doing their peer reviews.
Well, that's the first thing you need to do on Sunday evening. You need to be watching to see if your Zoom team or peer review teammates have submitted their work, so you can go ahead and start with that feedback. Because it takes you a while to do that feedback and do it that thoroughly and that specifically. So I always suggest Sunday evening and Monday, you're focusing on peer reviews and knocking those out.
That should be your first priority after you've submitted your work on Sunday night, is to begin looking for the two that you've got to do, and go ahead and do that. Now, I've had several that they've asked questions. In fact, one of the students asked coming on, and I said we would address that. Unless there is an emergency, I said, like, Dr. Revis, by Tuesday, they should have the peer reviews done. And I'm going to tell you why. If they're going to count for helping you to fix whatever it is that you need to fix on your work, then, if you don't get it until Saturday or late Friday, that's holding you hostage. You cannot wait that long to get your work done. So I'm just telling you, first of all, it's okay to say, Dr. Stedman, I'm not getting my peer reviews in a timely manner. Dr. Revis, I don't have a problem reaching out to you individually and say, what's the problem? You need to pick up speed. It's not fair to the others in your group if you are holding people up. So I'm just saying that make it a priority and get your peer reviews in no later than Tuesday, Before we have our class, all peer reviews really should be in. Wouldn't you say, Dr. Rose?
No, oh, definitely. And I was talking to a candidate today. She had a question and called me, and she said, you know what? When I went through and did my peer reviews last evening, I noticed that I had forgotten to do something that I saw in somebody else's narrative.
Exactly. Mhm.
I mean, what a great learning experience that is. So you can learn from each other in multiple ways through this peer review process. But we all have to be committed that we're going to get our first draft in or as early as possible. And we're going to do those peer reviews early as possible for this process to be beneficial.
Right. And I had one student, and I can't remember who it was, but I looked at the comment. She commented to one of her peers, and she said, after doing the peer review process, I understand now why they are asking us to do this. It was so helpful. And I thank them for, for recognizing that and to do it. If you use it the way it's intended to be used, then it will help you with the work that you're doing. Not only that, it prepares you in your role as an administrator when you have to provide, the feedback to the teachers in the school. So, there's a dual learning process here.
Dr. Stedman, could we maybe look and just remind people that there are two places they have to upload those peer reviews?
Yes, let me go here. And
I've gotten a few questions, and it is confusing when you first start out.
okay. Here is can everybody see my screen?
Yes.
Can you see it? Okay. Oh, okay, this is okay. You're going to, when you do the, okay, let me go to the Absol task for review. Let me pull that up. Okay. Okay. Absol task 1 for peer and instructor review. This is where this is one place that you would go.
And that's where that's where your peers are gonna be able to see your
Right.
feedback.
Right.
And you go right in the same thread that they created, and that's where you give them feedback. That's for your teammates.
Okay.
Now, for us to see it, you have to go back and drop it in.
Let me come back out of this.
Absol completed peer review Dropbox.
It's just where it is. Now, this is what you're going to go back to, or you can actually go to your discussion board and create a thread and put it in there. I mean, that's the same thing, but notice here, this is where you submit it to Dr. Revis and me. Your first peer review, whoever it is, task 1, this is where you click on there, you submit it to us, and it goes to us in Blackboard for a grade. You're going to submit the very same peer review that you sent to your peer for their review. So at the same time, you put it in the thread for them in a different thread, and then you come to the completed peer review Dropbox and you put them here for your final grade with Dr. Revis and me. Notice for each one, there's 2. Natasha's got her hand raised. Natasha, what is it? What do you need?
Yes, sir. So what I did was I submitted my paper to the peer review post that you showed us initially, but then where you are now, I submitted the peer review of the person in my team that I did. So was I supposed to submit my paper there?
No. The person whose work you reviewed. You're
okay, so right. I did it right.
You did it right. Yes. I'm sorry if I said that wrong. But
and then I was confused, like you guys were talking about feedback. Where do I go to see that feedback? Or maybe you guys just hadn't graded mine yet.
Everything that I've done has been graded.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So
you should See where it says over on the left-hand side, my grades?
I can show them, Dr.
Okay.
Revis. Let me-
Okay,
let me-
thank you.
Let me show them something else too. If you go to, I don't like to do this, but I'm going to do it anyway. Well, no. You can go, when you go to your grades, you'll be able to click on any comments when you go to your grades as well. So when you go under my grades, it will show
It will show our
the
feedback.
work, and then you should be able to click on that and see our comments from there as well. Does that help, Natasha?
It sure does. Thank you.
You are welcome. Okay, but again, let's remind you, we want your peer reviews after this week, and if you haven't done them, then you need to go ahead and you need to, after class tonight, by tomorrow, you need to get your peer reviews done. But after this week, let's make it a priority to make sure that our peer reviews are done before class starts on Tuesday, in all fairness, so that, but now if somebody doesn't do it, you're not going to be held hostage. If you don't wait, you find you somebody in your group and you peer review them. Okay? And then if yours hasn't been peer reviewed and Dr. Revis and I have cleared you and you're ready to move on and you've done what we've asked you to do, then you don't be held hostage and wait on somebody's work to look at on you. You go ahead and you move on as well. Okay? Okay. Very quick. Okay, Cherie, very quickly, because we got to cover some other stuff. Cherie, what did you need?
So the peer reviews that were posted inside of the threads, they were not seen at all from you and Dr. Revis at all. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah,
'Cause I know that
we've seen all. If we can look at the discussion board, but now we're not going to grade work in the discussion board. I usually just click on that and I see that you've said. We're not going to grade anything in the discussion board on the peer reviews. We only are going to grade it when you submit it to us for instructor grades. Is that what you're asking?
no, not really. So I was asking in reference to the peer reviews that we create for our actual peers. Were they not seen at all? Because you were showing me the Dropbox. And I know I didn't submit any of my peer reviews to the Dropbox. They were all submitted through the threads on the
Okay,
Blackboard.
but then you've got to take those same two and you've got to submit it to the Dropbox. We can see what you put in the thread, but that's not going to count as the grade that you're going to get for them. You've got to go and you've got to submit it to the peer review Dropbox for you to get your grade from Dr. Revis or me. You're going to submit on each one twice. One in the discussion board in the thread for your peer to look at. You're going to take that same one and you're going to submit it in the peer review Dropbox for a final grade for us. You're going to submit each peer review twice, one to the peer, one to the instructor.
Okay, thank you. I just got to do the rewind button. Thank you.
That's okay. You're not
That's
late.
okay. You're okay. Angela?
I just have a quick question. Will you guys give us feedback on our feedback to our peers? Because
No.
I'm kind of nervous.
No.
I don't know if I'm the only one. Okay,
We don't give feedback on what you do with your peers. We look at it,
okay,
but we're not going to
Okay.
give feedback on your peers for the most part. Now, once in a while, we may see something, but for the most part, all we're going to do is review the fact that you are communicating with your peers like you're supposed to.
okay.
Okay. Natasha, do you have another question?
No, sir.
Okay, good. Let's move on. Thank you. Those are good questions. Dr. Revis, let's go ahead and talk about what is due for this week, and let's look at task 2 of
Okay,
pull that up.
guys, one thing that I want you to really start doing is when you are writing on the template and have that template in front of you, I want you to have these helpful hints lying right beside your computer. The template is where you write, but the helpful hints tells you what to write. And if you'll just do what they say, you're going to be fine. Okay. So in task 2 is where we really, really delve in to our data analysis. Do you want to look at prompt 1 or you want me to start with prompt 2?
Okay, I'm sorry.
Dr. Steve.
That's
okay.
No, go ahead. I'm sorry.
It's prompt 1. It's all about describing the data collection strategies that your PLC used to determine the most pressing need. So you're going to talk about the discussion that you had about your data. And heading 2, and these highlighted headings are the same as what you're going to see in your template. They're no different. This is just the explanation, if you will. And so once you determine the strategies for collecting the data, you will determine the criteria and process that you're going to use. For example, you may say, well, we're going, most of you have the latest data that we have is 2018-19. Now, some of you are using some iReady and have more recent data, but for the most part, we're using data that's old. We know that. Don't worry about it. But you may say, well, we're going to compare our data to the district, or we're going to really delve in and look at our different subgroups. But that's what you're going to talk about and discuss and write up here in this second heading. And then in number 3, your collective data analysis. You're going to talk about all the data that you looked at and how you disaggregated it. And, you're telling the story of what your PLC did when you put the data in front of them. And then the culminating thing here is most pressing need. How did you determine the most pressing need? And very explicitly and specifically, you identify the most pressing need and tell why. Don't leave us guessing and don't leave your evaluator guessing. Very specifically tell your most pressing need and why. Do you want to go on, me to go on with prompt 2?
Go ahead, Dr.
Okay. Now, in prompt 2, that's where you're telling the same story, but now you're using a graphics. You'll use charts and tables. And, don't just put an isolated chart out there. Write a little bit about what this chart is showing you. And you're telling the story graphically, if you will, that you just told in the first task. All right.
Dr. Revis, let's answer a question right now. Okay.
Okay.
Kayla, what's your question?
What are some examples of most pressing need? Is it a statement? Like
Kayla,
what?
What are you working on? Refresh my memory. What?
So, for example, is it a pressing need, like to increase the math scores of a subpopulation?
Yes, that could be it, Kayla.
Could be.
It's based on
Kayla,
what the research tells you.
Yeah, or it could be, Kayla, somebody's looking at reading and the 5 different components of reading and data they get from their iReady. And they have looked at their data and found that the domain that they're lowest in is phonics. So it could be that you're identifying a curriculum strand in which your students don't do well in. Does that make sense?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, Lauren,
Okay.
did we answer your question, Lauren?
My question was back a minute ago, so I can, when you guys were talking about.
Okay. So just hold off on that then, and we'll come back to it then, okay? Okay, thank you. Any more questions right now about what Dr. Revis is talking about, or can she move on?
Hi, Dr. Revis, this is Tanya Arrington. Quick question about the task 2 description. it says that the session must be recorded, but then it references not using specific student names. Is it all right that in the discussion, because it's real time, that we talk about specific students and needs, but when we actually put it in the narrative, we make sure that the student names are not in the graphics?
Yes, you will not want to have students' names or teacher names, actually. Okay,
And that's for the graphic, correct?
right.
And
Right,
Tanya,
or the narrative.
we realize how difficult it is now with everything going on to always to video a meeting or whatever. That is highly recommended, but as long as you have evidence and proof, a picture of you presenting to the group, then that will be acceptable as well.
Okay, thank you.
You are welcome.
Okay, so now once you finish task 1 and 2, here's a little added piece that you've not had before. That's when you schedule a meeting with your principal or leadership team and you present the findings from your PLC. You can do that virtually, you can do it face-to-face, but I would recommend doing some type of presentation slideshow that you are showing your principal or your admin team how you led your PLC through the data analysis and determined the most pressing need. So you've got this added piece in here.
Okay.
And we want to make sure that tasks 1 and 2 are submitted at the same time. You want to talk about that a little bit?
Dr. Revis, while I'm pulling this up, answer questions. Anybody, if you have a question, go ahead and open up and ask Dr. Revis, or while I'm finding this new document.
Okay, I see, Natasha, you still have your hand up. Is that an?
I'm sorry, I'll see if I can cut it off.
Okay,
Yeah.
Lauren,
thank you.
you're gonna wait. Tony, you still have your hand up.
I'm sorry, I didn't remove it.
Okay,
Okay.
Katie?
My question is, you said we have to present to the admin team. What if the administrative team is part of our PLC and we'll be presenting it to them at the same time? Is that okay?
Then you've killed 2 birds with 1 stone.
Yes. Yes, but
That's
be
what I was
sure,
hoping.
Katie, be sure, and I know a lot of the other ones, if you've got your principal involved, be sure that you clearly state at the end that since your principal was part of the PLC, you did not have to do a separate presentation. You don't want the evaluator to mark you down
Exactly.
because of, okay?
That sounds good. Thank you.
Let's look at this.
Stacey?
Okay, let's hold your hands just a minute and let's look at this. I went back and I found a good completed APSL document from last semester. Okay, this is, again, this was task 1. And you can see they've got all their work in there. I just want to go into task 2 while we're talking about it, Dr. Revis, and
Okay.
about some things. Okay, here it is. Now notice everything in black stays like it's supposed to. Okay,
And that should be, that's single space. That's the only thing that's single space.
right.
And you need to leave it single space.
Right. Here are the data collection strategies. Very quickly, this is what this person said. I met with the PLC team on January 27th and we commenced at 9 o'clock. Very specific about her meeting. This is what it was determined by each grade level that there was not sufficient or reliable data to be collected from iReady, a program adopted in 1920. Previously, the school had utilized MClass, unfortunately, and then it went on to tell all the story about, what she's doing again, data collection strategies. She's talking about what she has, what she can use, what she can't use, why she can't use it. There were no writing scores. She's telling the story. You may have a lot of the same things. However, grade level map scores were accessible to the team for review. The MTSS coordinator was able to supply us with map data for language for arts for 1920 at this time, as well as the current year 2021. So she used the data that they had for it. But now I want to go back up here just a minute. Notice, no. Then let's go on down. She continued to talk about the criteria and process for identifying the most pressing need. Okay. The MTSS coordinator, remember, mentioned that previously. And I further investigated each of the grade level scores from 3 different time frames. There was already an understanding that while we were investigating this information, we needed to take a few things into consideration. Notice what she's doing, the criteria and process for identifying the most pressing need. Using what? She's using a key person, the MTSS coordinator, but she's focusing in on the map data that she has. And then she goes on to talk further and further about it. We focused on low and low average map scores in language arts, specifically literary text, language, craft, and structure during these years. Then I want you to look at the collaborative data analysis. During this second PLC, I asked the grade levels to share their percentiles for both school years, which include winter 2019, fall 2020, and winter. It was determined. Notice the good terminology, Dr. Revis. It was determined that there were, in fact, some questionable percentages. There were small gaps in percentiles across grade levels at the beginning of the 2021 school year. She's telling the story of what they're doing. However, there was a larger difference between map testing for this year and then compared to another year. I then asked, she's leading this process. I then asked each grade level teacher to share their data for documentation to the team. In 3rd grade, last year's students loaded, and then it goes on to talk about that. But she goes on and talks more and more about this story, does an excellent job with that. But then now all of that leads to this. Now this is, Kayla, this is where you were asking the question a while ago. After much consideration from the PLC team, notice it didn't say that I made this decision. And even if the principal has said, this is what we're going to do, you've got to formulate it in the point that after all of this, that this is what it was, but the principal's decision was, but you've got to show collaboration and your leadership with this. Students returning face-to-face instruction will have targeted instruction addressing these skills. And then it goes on and on and on to further talk about it, leading up to the big event. Upon completion of my meeting with the PLC team, I scheduled a meeting with my principal via Google Meet, and that was during heavy COVID time. Let me see, I want to come back here. After much consideration, PLC, it was agreed that the greatest need was to focus on literary text, language, craft, and structure. Very specific. Now, in just a minute, you're going to see this again. You're going to see this again. This language should flow now because she's identified the need. So this shouldn't be the first and last time that you see this. Am I right, Dr. Revis? This need will continue to flow in the work that you do.
Exactly. You're going to take this need and you have to identify it very specifically in order to do task 3.
Now, I want you to notice, she did a great job. Now, everything she talked about up there, I want you to see what she's done. This is in task 2, or prompt 2 of task 2. This is where she put her figure. Now, remember, she's talked about the school, work with 3rd grade. Look what she's done, comparing last year's winter scores to this year's winter scores. That's her graphic information for those 3 years. And she's done it for the 4th grade. You see what she's done? That's her map data. She's used the information. She has visually shared everything that she talked about in prompt one up there. This is what she's done based on how she determined the pressing. I can see what she's talking about. Those bar graphs show me exactly what she's talking about. I can understand it. And she's did a brief explanation, narrative explanation for this as well. She did it for the 5th grade. That's it. Once you identify the pressing need, that's it. Before we go on though, let's answer any questions at this point. Just any questions of Dr. Revis and me at this point about what you've got to do this week. Okay.
I
Did
have
we
one-
just come off of, oh, sorry.
Sorry.
That's okay.
Go ahead, Jennifer.
Okay, I do have a quick question. If I'm using Reading Plus data that is current from this year, we use it as a universal screener for all of the grades in my middle school. And I'm analyzing that and desegregating that down to gender, ethnicity, AIG, SWD, ESL, all of that. And then determining the biggest need based on my comprehension scores, the vocabulary scores, things like that. Will that suffice for this, since I'm not comparing it from year to year?
Yes,
Because
exactly.
Yes.
what,
Now let me tell you something, okay? Without even disaggregating data at your school, I can promise you, without a shadow of the doubt, that your ESL students or limited English proficient students and your students with disabilities are going to be the lowest 2 performing groups. That's a no-brainer. Okay. So just be careful and don't fall into that pitfall. It may be better to look at curriculum strands.
okay.
You can,
Mhm.
but I'm just telling you, yes, those children are going to be your
Yeah.
lowest performing children.
Other questions, Dr. Revis? I've made a decision. I'm not going to. They'll get enough of task 3 when on Thursday.
Okay.
I don't want to confuse things. I think we've had some good questions, and I think they'll be okay on Thursday. And then we can introduce the Zoom team assignment next week. So you and I both
Okay,
agreed
so-
we thought we had too much on there. So
Yeah. So I see Racine's hands up. Racine, did you have a new question?
I did, regarding the presentation that we're going to share with the administrative team from the PLC work. Do you want that linked in? I'm guessing no, because you'd have to have access to the document itself. So do we just take screenshots of some of those slides as
Yeah.
the artifact?
yes.
I really like to see small screenshots of your whole presentation.
Thank you.
You can do a screenshot, like if you have 10 frames, then it's okay to put those 10 frames
Yeah.
in your appendices. Okay, Damien?
Yes, sir. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yeah, I was wondering, since my group is so diverse, a strategy to try to narrow my the need down, or to look at it.
Okay.
Because everyone in my group is expert at exactly what they do. And I noticed that Dr. Rivas had just mentioned the strategy, and I was wondering if she elaborate.
Damien's at an alternative school, and
Okay.
he has a small population there. And you may want to take this a little bit further. I spoke with him about possibly looking at literacy, some form of literacy, because that touches everything, and it will make his life easier if he does that.
Yes, that would be a very good thing to delve into. And in literacy in middle school, you can look at comprehension and some of the different components that make up reading comprehension. But let me warn you guys, in this task, You are not finding solutions.
Mm-mm.
You are only identifying the need.
Right.
We want to go talk about solutions real quickly, but don't let them. Don't let them do that. Tim, we'll get there. Right now, we're identifying the need. Now, Davian, in middle school, you may find that if you've got good reading data, it may show you that they have some fundamental phonics skills missing. I just don't know what kind of data, you've got. You just have to look at what you've got and determine from there what you want to look at as a piece of your literacy. Okay.
Okay, I think that explained a lot, and thank you.
Okay.
And you can call me Damien if you need to.
Lauren,
sir.
you have your hand up.
Yes, I have two questions. One is about the APSA 1 and the APSA 2. So since we're on the APSA 2, I can do APSA 2. If you want me to.
Lauren, I can't hear you, Lauren.
Can you hear me now?
A little bit better, yes.
Hang on, come back to me. I'm sorry. My dog's just decided to bark.
Okay, Kayla, we're gonna hop to you right quick.
Okay, so I'm just trying to figure out what sort of data should we be looking at? Is EOC data not ideal?
Yes, it is very ideal.
Oh,
You're
okay.
you're in high school, correct?
Yes, I am.
Yeah, that's probably the only data you've got, Kayla.
Yeah, because I know,
Yeah.
because I'm high school and I'm also special ed, and I remember attending a training with my district, and iReady is only up through 8th grade, they told me.
Yeah, you
So
would.
I don't really have anything other than maps or the EOC.
Yeah. And so there, I don't know, I'm not familiar enough with MAP to know. I would think it would break it down, at least at your school, and tell you the percentage of your students scoring proficient on different curriculum strands. Does it?
I don't know because I can't find it, but I'm gonna try to
Okay.
find it.
All right. Okay.
But
So
I
you-
know for sure on the school report card, we have we definitely have the EOC data.
Okay. Yes.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
Jennifer, did we answer your question? Your hand's still raised. Did you have another question?
Nope, sorry. I
Yeah, that's
forgot to-
okay. That's okay. Lauren, are you there now?
And can you guys hear me?
Yes, I can better now.
Okay. So I had a question about the APSA 1, but then also the APSA 2. So do you want me to start with the 2?
Go with APSA 1 right now. Yes.
Okay. So APSA 1, to find your feedback, we go to grades, and then like on my screen, it's just kind of showing up on the right-hand side here. I'm just making sure I'm looking at it in the right place because it doesn't show author or anything.
Okay. Lauren, why don't we do this? Let's after class, you've got my phone number, call me and we'll walk through this, okay?
Okay, and then about the APSA 2, I know we need to present it. Where in the paper do we put that our present, that I heard Dr. Rivas say that we need to put that we presented it, I guess, in the paper. Where does that go in the paper? And is that also where we mention our presentation and seeing the the appropriate place in the appendices?
Okay, go ahead,
To
Dr.
see it
Rivas.
at the very end. That's just my preference.
Yes.
It stands out. It just flows logically to see that at the very end of task 2.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Call me now, Lauren, when this is over with.
I
Okay.
will.
Okay. Rachel?
I have another quick question.
Okay, go ahead. Wait, Rachel?
Okay, I just wanted some clarification on the appendices. So even if we do a video, you just want screenshots of,
If you do a video, well, the video,
They can
yes,
the
put some
video.
screenshots there, and I'm going to tell you why. It's task stream is not always friendly to videos. However, when you do your competency folio, that's a good something to have.
Okay.
So I would
Thank
say
you.
put it in there. If you do the video, also put the screenshots in there as well.
Okay.
Okay.
Awesome. Thank you.
Welcome.
Okay,
Evangela?
I've got,
I think you may have touched on it, but should we just wait till next week to have our Zoom team meeting?
Okay. Where some groups, you can have a Zoom team meeting with your team to talk about stuff, but then nothing has been required yet. Now, I think some.
Okay, I was just wondering, I
some
know
are
I
gonna
saw
meet
on that.
tonight, but you're not behind on anything. If your team has not met yet, we haven't said you had to meet yet.
and
Oh,
guys,
okay.
yeah, again, don't do that required Zoom meeting until we talk about it a little
Yeah,
bit.
don't do that yet. If we haven't talked about it, don't do it. Yes.
You need to get it organized and get a date set, but that's it right now.
We'll talk about, you'll have time. We'll talk about that on Tuesday. Okay. Because task 2 will be over with, and we need to give you some comments on that first. Okay. Kayla?
I just wanted to, you know what, never mind. I got it figured out.
Okay, good.
Thank you.
Okay.
Anybody else? Guys, if you put it in the chat box, I'm gonna go to the chat box now and see if we can answer those questions.
I do have one question.
Okay.
So if we, and probably like many other schools, only had a 3-day week this week, if we cannot carve out time with the full team to present all of our entire presentation this week, is it okay to meet briefly and share the presentation with them and ask them for feedback via email?
Why don't you ask for a Zoom meeting with them?
Well, yeah, even that kind of meeting, that's what I meant, like,
Yeah,
because
you can do a Zoom meeting with them. Danielle, whatever you have to do to make it work. We know that we're living in a different time now. So if a Zoom meeting, that would work fine. And if all of them can't meet, as long as you've got enough, you may not always have, if you've got 5 members, you may not always have 5 members. If there's 3 of you, then work with what you've got.
yeah, and it wasn't a matter of not being able to get to them physically. It was more so because we have IEP meetings after school all week this week for the 3 days that we are in school, and they go until almost 5. And that was
Right, and you know, and I have found, because Zoom is so easy now, that even with them, after they get home in the afternoon and get their families settled or whatever, somebody may be willing to even meet at 7:30 or 8 o'clock for just a few minutes to go over something. That may be something that they may decide that's easier for them to do. Because you're working with friends a lot of times. That, you know, whatever works, you know, that may not work, but it may work.
Okay.
Dr. Stedman, you want to take this one? Is there a reference requirement for this task, since it's more of a narrative and you're describing the work of the group?
There could be references simply because you're pulling data, and sometimes a data source requires a reference. It may not, but it could. You always look for an opportunity for a reference and an appendices with whatever you're doing. It may not, but you still need to be open to it. And if it doesn't have one, then it just doesn't have one.
If you're pulling data from your state school report card, I would cite that as where you got the data.
Exactly, yes. So
Yeah.
pretty much, or if it's map scores, then you know that there's a source for that. So I would say at least that would be a data source, or a reference. Other questions?
You said that the map scores would be a reference?
Or where you pull them from, because that's a living document.
I did have a question. This is Solomon.
Okay,
When it
Solomon,
comes,
speak up a little bit, Solomon. I can't hear you.
can you hear me now?
Yeah, that's better.
Okay. When it comes to the data, our goal for my group is based on second grade MAP scores. So when we were looking at data today, we compared through the grade level from kindergarten, first grade, and second grade. Is that acceptable, or should I be looking through the year, like from year?
Either is acceptable.
Yeah.
Dr. Revis.
Yeah. Oh, yes. That's good data.
I like that. I like that, Solomon.
Yeah.
Okay, and then also the second part is when we were looking at the data today, you guys were mentioning like the presentation screenshots from the presentation. We were more, we were in person this time versus the Zoom meeting. So I recorded the meeting, but it's really just not, it's kind of like just looking at a group of us sitting in there. So I didn't use any visuals. I printed out the scores for each grade level and things of that nature. So should I just put the PDF of those things that I copied for them to look at in person?
Right. And if you don't have a visual, all you need at the most is a picture of you presenting. And if you don't have that because you thought the video, just go back and sit wherever you were working and have somebody take a picture of you with 2 or 3 people in front of you and just go back and recreate that.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay.
Okay, let's look at some of the questions in the chat bar.
Okay.
First question is about is a direct message to me. Guys, if you have those direct messages to me, if you just want to shoot me an email, that would, after class, that would be good. And that way we can converse just directly to me.
While you're looking, Dr. Revis, Ursula, do you have a question?
Yes, I just had a real quick question. When we are inserting the artifacts in the appendices that we're gathering together, can we insert those as hyperlinks as well?
You have to show them. You have to show the work. I'm not going to open up a link, and your evaluator is not going to open up a link.
Okay, all right.
Again, don't feel like you're late. If your Zoom team hasn't met, you shouldn't be meeting.
Right.
You should just be organizing that Zoom team. There is no limit or expectation for the number of graphs you need. The graphs tell the story of the data that you've looked at. And, you know, we don't put numbers and stuff on this. It's just, it's got to tell the story.
Sometimes you'll see in the terminology to be able to have an accomplished document, it may say multiple graphs. That means that you can't put just one thing in there. You've got to tell your story in more than one way. At this point, you know, if it's one and it tells all your story, then that one graph will do it. But I would say that, you know, it's not going to be a lot of stuff because you've narrowed it down to, you know, this is my most pressing need, and whatever is explaining that most pressing need is what we need to see. Okay. Okay, Jeffrey.
Good evening. My question is about me particularly. I have been asked by my principal to focus on at middle school multiplication. And I'm looking at what kind of data can I use that will specifically look at multiplication for all 6th, 7th, and 8th grades.
You're not going to find it. That skill is not in the curriculum in middle school, so you won't find data there.
Okay, so what do I need to do? Do I need to tell him to find something else, or what? I mean,
I think what I would see it. I understand multiplication is a prerequisite skill for many others. Okay, but you're not going to find any data in your middle school math curriculum that's going to talk about multiplication. It's just not going to be there because that's not a curriculum skill at the middle school. Now, if you were in 2nd grade, 3rd grade, yeah, maybe, but it won't be there. I think I would probably go back to my principal and just ask him, can you analyze the math scores in general by curriculum strand? And you can focus on multiplication as a part of that, but you can't find data with that.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Did I answer your question? I didn't, did I?
Yes, you did. You told me basically that I need to start over, or tell him I need to start over. But that can be part of, if we meet, if in our next meeting, if I shed light on that, I could write that up, and that could be part of the narrative, right? As far as us finding out that maybe multiplication may not be the pressing need.
What about if I'm a fellow math professional, what about if you related it to one of the power or core standards? Their skill level related to that power or core standard.
That's what you would have to do. It's a prerequisite skill for many things.
Let's find something specifically related to.
Yeah.
Yeah, go back to your power or core standards, see how your students performed, and then you could desegregate your data from there.
Okay, gotcha. Find one of the weaker areas there.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Thank you. Appreciate that.
Brian?
Yes, a quick question. We used iReady data and iStation, and I'm doing second grade. That's what my admin wants me kind of focus there. Last year's data was pretty much just poop, terrible. And so I don't have a lot of great data from last year, but we do have the BOY. We moved back to M class is what we used to have. I do have the BOY data for M class this year. Is that too shallow, or do I really need to go back? It is second grade.
I would put last year's data, just whatever it is what it is. I would use that, but I would also use my BOY data as well.
Have you finished collecting your BOY data?
Yeah, yes, they've done.
Okay, great.
Pretty much done with the for the M class. They're pretty much done on that. And
okay.
But
Brian, you know, the thing is, the information you have from last year is part of the story, even though it may not be good or whatever. It is a little part of the story. So I would put it there. I would put it there.
Well, there's a lot of kids in red, and
and that's okay.
The color really hasn't changed.
That's okay. That's okay.
Yeah.
That's okay.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, Kayla.
Forgot to take my
okay. That's okay. That's okay. Dr. Revis, did we address everybody's questions in the chat box?
I think so. The last one was about COVID hitting hard in the building, and the administrators are tied up from beginning to the end of the day trying to do contact tracing. And guys, I know that. Do what you can do, and they will make time for you. I think respect their time and just see when you can get in with them, and be well prepared. Offer them an option of a Zoom or a face-to-face. Be very well prepared, be very succinct, get through that presentation quickly. Be very mindful of their time.
And you remember, that's it. You're working around their time, so you've got to accommodate them. So always be intentional in that whenever you're doing anything. And again, I had a preacher one time that used to tell us this all the time, and I live by this a lot. Don't let what you can't do hinder what you can do. You could begin thinking a lot about, all of this is happening, COVID this, COVID that, principle that, and you get that becomes your mindset, and it becomes so heavy that you can't concentrate on what you need to be doing. We know that we understand, we know that it's out there, that it's out there. you've got to think beyond that. Again, don't let what you can't do hinder what you can do. Focus on what you can do. And then what you can't do may be just a temporary thing, but if you sit there and you wait on that, then that gets you behind. Move on to something that you can do and come back to what you couldn't do when you can do it, if that makes sense. But don't camp out in a place because you're going to be dealing with all this stuff. It's not going to go away anytime soon. So, you got to deal with it. But I want to commend every one of you. This is week 3, and we ask you to hang in there with us. And I thank
And you have.
I thank you for hanging in there with us. I can already see growth, Dr. Revis, in their questions.
Oh, I can too.
In their thinking. I can, already, you may not see it, but we can see it already. Just from that first week. And you may not realize it. Dr. Revis and I, we learn a lot about each of you individually. I thoroughly enjoyed reading your school profiles. That tells me a lot about you. And while it's just we're into week 3, I can promise you this, before the next 2 or 3 weeks is over with, I pretty much will have every one of you that I work with pretty much out. There'll be distinctions about every one of you in my thinking.
Kalisha, you had a question?
I do. My question is, okay, I'm focused on already for first grade, but all the first graders all the kindergartens, they are in first grade currently. So do I need to go back and look at the iReady for kindergarten? Would that help give more details, or what do you suggest I do?
I'd say absolutely.
Okay.
I would say absolutely go back to kindergarten. Anything that you can improve with students that follows them. Dr. Revis, would you not agree?
Oh, I definitely would agree. Don't limit yourself. You may bring a data set to the PLC meeting and they just say, we don't, let's don't look at that. As a group, you decide we're not going to look at that. We're going to look at current year. That's okay. That's part of the process.
Right. And you could say, Kalisha, we looked at the current year, but we decided not to use it. That's the same thing with Brian. Brian, you may say that, we looked at that, but we've decided that, for whatever reason, that you decided as a team that you're not going to use that. Okay.
Okay, guys. I encourage you, each and every one of you. Thank you, first of all, for hanging in there with us tonight. Encourage you to be on Thursday night to listen to the information there.
Okay.
And
I do know what I need to tell them, Dr. Revis. Go ahead. I need to remind. Go ahead, Dr. Revis. I need to tell them one thing before we close out, though.
No, go ahead. Go ahead.
Dr. Revis and I sent you an email today. Check your Gardner Webb email, and this was from the School of Education from Wendy Turbyfield, and it simply said task stream accounts have been created for all new master's candidates. All instructors should ask candidates to check their email for the welcome email from Watermark. Now, sometimes you'll say, I don't recognize that. It's task stream, but it's under the Watermark trademark. So don't think that that's scam mail or something wrong and just delete it. Watermark and complete the setup of your accounts. Then log into TaskStream. If you didn't get it, you need to reach out to Wendy Turbyfield and say, I didn't get this in the School of Education. Dr. Lamb's goal is on Thursday evening, the first half of the hour that we will be with you, Dr. Lamb is going to help you set up your TaskStream account. Our goal is to take the other half and to Dr. Hamilton is going to take us through task 3. Dr. Revis is going to take us through task 4, and Dr. Crawford is going to take us through task 5. And the reason we're going to do this is because I think you're at a place now that you need to kind of see the big picture. And if you see the big picture, it'll help you better understand as you're completing task 2, you know, this is why I'm doing this because this is what I'm going to do next. When you get to task 3, I'm doing this because this is what I've got to do next. And you'll see that you'll begin to see the end result. Just remember, in 4 weeks, 3 to 4 weeks, you will have completed the entire APSL. It will be history and we'll move on to the next evidence. You're that far along already.
Let me go back and say one more thing about that email from Watermark. I believe it is time sensitive. So that's something you don't need to sit on. Go ahead immediately and create your account. And that's all you can do is create an account.
Yeah.
But I believe that's a time sensitive email.
Do it tonight before you go to bed. Just go ahead and knock it out, get it over with.
He keeps saying about master students. So what about the add-on?
That's the same thing, Kayla.
Yeah.
It's all of you.
Yeah.
But what if we haven't received it?
If you haven't received it, you need to send Wendy Turbyfield, and you can go. Do you have?
Yeah, I didn't receive it either.
Look in your junk mail first.
Yeah, look in your.
Yeah, I didn't receive it either.
I did, but it's not in there.
You did, but what now?
I did look in my junk and it's not in there.
Okay.
Yeah, I received the email. However, the directions are unclear on how to set up the account and where to go.
Okay. If you have questions
Okay.
and you can't do it, then hold it until Thursday, and Dr. Lamb will be the expert to guide that process. Don't spend a lot of time if you can't find it. You know, we'll address that on Thursday.
Well, my email came from you, Dr. Stedman. It was a forward.
Yeah, I forward what I got from the graduate office. Yes.
Yeah, I think we just need to.
We were asked.
I think we just need to. Yeah, I think we just need to wait for a day or so before those emails get to you. I think that was
it could show up tomorrow. We don't deal with task stream. All we do is just share the information from them. So if it doesn't show up and you can't find it, then we will have to wait until Thursday when Dr. Lamb can address it, because that comes from their offices, not from us. We have no access to task stream at all, those accounts.
And I've gotten several emails from people in my class. Guys, I will get on those, but I'm going to eat dinner first, and then I will start addressing the emails you're sending me.
Is the grade that's on Blackboard, is that from you guys as professors for our task 1 draft?
Yes.
Okay.
And that grade is subject to change as you make the revisions that we have asked you to make.
Okay.
I very rarely send one on through. There's usually something I'm going to ask you to revise, and you make that revision, put it back in the very same thread, and I will tell you when it's ready to be submitted for final evaluation.
So don't put it in the Dropbox until you.
No.
Okay.
Until I tell you. Okay.
Brooke, if you'll be my contact person, if it shows up tomorrow or at any time, let me know. If you happen to find.
Oh no, I have mine.
You've got yours.
I have
Okay.
mine.
Okay.
I was just saying that people were confused that it was coming from Wendy, and it.
Well, we sent you the email, but you should have gotten something you should have gotten something specifically from Watermark.
It's not going to come from Wendy.
The email, but you should have something from Watermark that will allow you to open up and set up your account.
Okay, I'll look again, but I know I
Okay.
got the email from you.
Okay, I sent you what they sent me, but they're just saying just to let the students know that you should have received something from Watermark. And again, don't stress over this. Y'all got too much other to do. We'll cover this on Thursday. I'm going to let Dr. Lamb know that there were that it was questionable so that he can go in and look at it, and we'll be ready for you on Thursday if it hasn't shown up. We'll
Okay.
figure it out. Thank you, though. Okay, guys, this has been good. Good questions. I can tell you're thinking and you're doing everything that you're supposed to do at this point. Again, if there's work, task one, as Dr. Revis said, if we ask you to do some work to it, you know, and you didn't get even if we gave you 100 and you want us to look at it before you submit it, we can go ahead and start telling you to submit it for a final grade at this point once you make those corrections. You don't have to wait until Sunday on that. If you,
Right, make those corrections and get that out of the way.
yeah, and
Yeah.
if you finish task 2 for peer and instructor review before Sunday, by all means, go ahead and get it to us. The earlier you get it to us, the sooner we can get into it and give you your feedback and allow you to move on. You're already picking up the pace, I can tell. You're doing well. Okay.
Thank you, guys. You have a good evening.
Good night. We'll see you on Thursday.